Hey everybody, welcome to our final session on our marathon question and answer today, where we're answering should you pencil mark your Sudoku puzzles. There's a lot of controversy related to that. So we are in the middle of Sudoku week, and all this week is a celebration of all things Sudoku. Today we were doing all these question and answers, all these questions that we get from you, our loyal fans, and I want to thank you for joining us and for commenting and helping us make this a better time. And I want you to enjoy it as well. So I want you to go to giveaway.sudokuprofessor.com. You can see the link right there and check it out. You can sign up so that you continue to get, sign up for our giveaway. But when you do sign up, you'll also continue to get the emails, if you're not already, about all of the activities that we have going on this week, all the puzzle solving, all the techniques, everything that we're releasing this week, so that you can be a better Sudoku player and you can have a lot more fun. So again, today's topic is all about pencil marking and should you pencil mark your Sudoku puzzles? Because like I said, there's some controversy. We have strong opinions on both sides. I think one thing that caught me off guard, when I first started teaching people how to play Sudoku, I was telling somebody how to do this. He says, I don't pencil mark anything. He solved Sudoku. I don't pencil mark it at all. I want to exercise my memory. That kind of surprised me. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Then we actually had a recent email and from another viewer who says, I think pencil marking is cheating. So he doesn't want to pencil mark because it's cheating. Okay. I will say that most people use what and they ascribed this thing called the brute force, what I call the brute force method. Okay. Everybody else calls it solving. I call it brute force and I have an example of it right up here in the corner. This is, ignore the rest of it. This is all the little pencil marks that you write in here. If you're not familiar, I've described everybody. If you're on here and you've known me for quite a while, you are well aware of the brute force, and I've described this to you, but this is what I talk about when I'm brute force. This is where you write little pencil marks in every space that's empty, and every space, every pencil mark that's there is all the possible numbers that could go in that space. And you repeat that through the whole board. All the apps that you have that you run on your computer or tablet or whatever, they all use this. You can do it with a push of a button. You can have the whole thing filled in. And I think most of the other people that teach on YouTube, for example, the other Sudoku guys, gals, and gurus out there, they start off a puzzle that's shown with that throughout the whole puzzle. That's how they solve. So let's look at that. There's this kind of continuum. There's the folks on one hand that say, hey, we shouldn't pencil mark at all for whatever reason. They think it's cheating, or they just want to, they think they're going to work on their memory because of that. And we have the other end of the spectrum, which is the brute force. Sudoku Professor is somewhere in between. Actually, I'll show you how to do it. It's actually shown on the puzzle here, but I'll talk about more of that. We're in between there on this spectrum. So again, I'll just repeat for those who new to Sudoku Professor. We don't do the brute force. And the reason we don't do brute force is because it puts too much extraneous data on the board. Okay. And by putting all of that extraneous data, the things that don't matter, the things that aren't going to help you, it actually hides the good information that you would see that could actually help you solve the puzzle. Okay. I think it has other things. I think it reduces the fun, if not eliminates the fun. It's exasperating. There's a lot of reasons to avoid it. And I'm going to give you some reasons what to substitute. But then again, we have the other people that are all the way over on the no pencil marking end of the spectrum. Now, what's interesting about this is, again, they often refer to the memory, that I'm going to try to remember everything that's on the board. The problem is that that's not going to work very well for you. And there's scientific proof that talk about, or I guess you say scientific evidence. These people talk about these scientists that study the brain and memory and cognition and everything like that. They realize that when you're doing Sudoku, that you're engaging a part of your brain, a part of your memory called working memory. Now, working memory is it's sort of like short-term memory, and some people kind of conflate the two. There is a distinction. Short-term memory actually refers to actually being able to store, and it's more like the storage of that memory. Whereas working memory is like you would imagine, it's actually you have a memory of it and you're actually manipulating it. You're actually working with the things that you're trying to remember. The problem with working memory is that it's actually very small. There's a lot of evidence to show that you have the average person has the ability to remember about 7 bits of information, 7 chunks of information. It could be 7 numbers in like a phone number or something like that, or it could be 7 things on a Sudoku board, or it could be 7 other pieces of information, however it's chunked up. So on average, it's about 7. Some people, depending on the situation and the type of things that you're trying to remember, it may be maybe 4, it may be 8 or 10. And, some people have either trained their brain or they're actually geniuses, or have some sort of like savant ability, and their memory extends way beyond that. Okay. But for the rest of us, the normal people, you're really limited about 7 bits of information. And it's sort of like when you start, I kind of imagine when you stuff one piece more, you're trying to fit one more piece in on one end, something is going to fall out the other end. And that's what your working memory does. It doesn't allow you to remember. So what happens is when you don't put any pencil marks on the board and you're trying to use your memory, you're using your working memory, which is a great thing to exercise, but you're not really going to be able to remember that much. Normal people under normal circumstances don't have the capacity to remember much. So what you end up doing is you end up redoing the logic a lot. That's what happens. You end up not remembering where 8 was able to go in this box, or 6 or whatever. And so you end up redoing that logic multiple times. Again, we split the difference here at Sudoku Professor, and so we put useful information. So what you see up here is brute force. Obviously, you would know what the puzzle would look like if it had no pencil marks on it. And I've done a little bit of pencil marking on the rest of the board to show you how we're very strategic in the pencil marking that we do that allows us to see the good information. Part of the pencil marking, for example, that I've done already allows me to see that 1 could only go in these 2 spaces right here in this box right here, and that 3 can only go in these 2 spaces right here, just because of the pencil marking that I'm doing and that I'm limiting it. Okay. Those are called double row eliminations. That's a junior level technique that we teach. But I want you to let's think about it a different way. If you're not convinced about, if you're on the end, let's say, well, if you're on either end, either on the end of you don't believe in any pencil marking, or you believe in pencil marking everything and brute forcing it. Let's talk about that. So let's imagine you have 2 students in class. Excuse me. Now, let's see, you have 2 students. They're sitting next to each other. They're just average students. We're not talking about, neither one is exceptional. You've got John and you've got Mary. Okay. They're both interested in the subject that the professor down front is teaching. They're both paying attention. Okay. Now, John, he's the tough guy. He's going to sit there and he says, I'm not going to bother to take notes. I'm going to listen carefully, and I'm going to remember what I need to know. Okay. Mary, on the other hand, is sitting there with a notebook open, and she is listening, and she's trying to determine what is it that the professor is emphasizing, what's important. Let me take notes about that. Let me write this stuff down. She's not trying to write everything down verbatim. She's just trying to write down the important things, right? So now I'm going to ask you a question. Who do you think is going to do better when the exam comes around? Okay. Now, Mary, when the exam comes, we're talking about weeks have gone by. Many, many lectures have gone by, and they've had all this stuff. And John has not taken a single note. He's paid attention, but he's not taking any single notes. Mary has taken notes, a lot of notes. Okay. So the night before the exam, Mary is reviewing her notes. She's recalling all of this stuff. What can John do? Okay. What's John gonna do? Okay. Well, let's see here. He can't recall everything. I mean, even if he has a really good memory, he's not going to recall the content of every lecture. He's probably not going to be able to recall even a lot of the important points, because what's really important? I mean, he's trying to pay attention, but what was emphasized? You know, I don't know. Again, he's just got average memory. And we're not even talking about whether it's short-term or long-term or working memory. We're just talking about just trying to remember. So he can't remember. I don't think anybody could expect John to be able to remember and recall. So what is he going to do? Okay. He's going to end up resorting to going back to the textbook, which has the entire subject in the textbook. Now, a lot of classes that you probably attended and I attended, the teacher didn't teach the entire textbook. Okay. The teacher taught parts of the text, skipped, moved, didn't teach the details of everything, skipped, moved around, basically got the highlights or got the important things and things like that. Occasionally, you did go to a class that did teach the textbook end to end. But the point of it is that John's going to sit there and he's going to break open the textbook. That's like resorting to brute force. He's now looking at everything about the subject that could have been covered in the class, most of which is not going to be on the exam. That's what we get with brute force. We have all of this extra data, most of which doesn't matter. Okay. So for example, if you look up here, 9 can go in every space that's empty. How does that help us figure out where 9 goes? It doesn't. Okay. That's like opening the book. So who do you think is going to do better on the exam with less effort? I think that both of us would agree that it's Mary. So what we're doing when we do our things, when we make notes of where a number could go in 2 spaces within a box, or when we make notes of double doubles and other things like that we can find, and we emphasize that good information. We are taking notes. We're like Mary. We're taking notes of the good stuff, right? And we're not trying to remember everything, but at the same time, we know that since we're not putting everything, there is some things that we either need to recall or we might need to redo some logic. Okay. But we've got the important stuff on there, and we're able to use that good stuff. It's not cluttered up with things that we don't need. We're able to use that good stuff to help us solve the rest of the puzzle. Now, if you want to learn how to do this type of pencil marking, it's real easy. You just need to sign up for our lessons. But I'll tell you what the best way to do right now is to get involved in what we're doing this week. So you can sign up for the entire, if you sign up for the giveaway, you will be getting the emails about all the rest of the events and the videos and other information, the other learning, teaching material that we're doing for the rest of this week. You'll be getting emails. We're actually doing a webinar tomorrow. We're going to go over 4 puzzles sent in by our club members. I'm going to show you where they're stuck, what we can do to help them get past that. You're going to learn from that. And there's a lot more coming out later this week. So if you just go to giveaway.sudokuprofessor.com, you can sign up there. You can sign up for our big giveaway. You could be a winner. You could be that grand prize winner. And I will be drawing that on Saturday. And at the same time, again, you'll be signed up for the emails that you'll get for the rest of the week here on all the things, all the great things that we're doing for Sudoku Week. All right. Well, thanks a lot. I hope this helps. We want to reduce our pencil marking to the to note taking, and we want to be Mary. Don't be John. Be Mary. So get out there, solve more Sudoku, learn how to do it. I'm here to teach you. That's what Sudoku Week's all about. And sign up again. Go to our giveaway.sudokuprofessor.com and sign up for our Sudoku Players Dream Giveaway Sweepstakes. And I'll see you tomorrow.